one. So those of you who weren't here for part one, I'm gonna recap it, and then we'll go from there. So number one, we gotta set realistic goals, right? So people say, I want to lose 100 pounds. It's realistic for some people, but to lose 100 pounds in like 2 months is not really realistic. So you gotta be realistic. A good goal, realistic-wise, with science, was when you consult with a professional, is roughly about 5 pounds a week you can lose, and that's on the aggressive side. And I've known because I've seen patients that do it, and I got some people in here that have done it. Also, too, you got to monitor your calorie intake. If you go back and look at the one that's on YouTube, I went over BMR. BMR is your basal metabolic rate. And what BMR is anybody wants some paper to take notes?
Yeah.
Hey, Rhonda, can you get some paper? So BMR is basal metabolic rate. What that is that's the amount of calories that it takes for you to live, right? Most people around 15 to 1800. So just you sitting right here, like your heart is beating, your lungs are breathing, it takes calories your body burns to live. So if you don't eat, you're draining your storage that your body has. And so that only lasts so long because you can go about 30 days without food. Or some people would say longer, but then you deplete all that, you push out what they call autophagy, where you push out all the toxins, and that's how people heal from long fasts. So it is beneficial, but you got to know what comes with that. And then the second thing we talked about too is exercise. Who remembers the 2 ways that I said exercise? The 2 main ways. Anybody remember? Number 1 was strength training. It's all females in here. We at least had a couple of males the last one. But females, y'all need to actually lift more weights than men. And why? Why do women need to lift weights just as much as men do? That rib, so that rib can be strong. Not even that. No, it honestly, the reason why women need to lift more weight, as much weight as men, is because it helps you to build bone density. Women have the highest rates, Asian women, Caucasian women have the higher rates of what they call osteoporosis, where you get like brittle bones. So what happens to a woman over the age of 70 if she falls over the age of 70, the likelihood of her dying is 50%. Did y'all know that? So that's why when we do a lot of stuff in here, we're building strength. The best insurance policy you give yourself is strength.
Right.
So strength training is number 1. Cardiovascular is number 2. Cardiovascular is where you're actually pumping that heart, right? And you're getting into what they call zone 2 is fat burning zone. Zone 3 is where you're getting the anaerobic heart rate, and then you start going into burning muscle, but that's where you use for shorter periods of time. Like if a dog is chasing you or something, you can't live in that, right? And then the next thing we got is sleep and stress management. How much sleep should we get?
5 to 6 hours.
No, 7 to 8. 7 to 8. If you get that, you sleep deprived. And then we talked about the different stages of sleep. And one of the reasons, other things is stress management. Stress management is very important. I talked about how emotions affect us and how stress affects us. So I can adjust you all day, but if you're constantly stressed out, you're going to gain weight. It's going to be hard for you to lose weight. It's going to raise your cortisol levels. You're looking at your job. You're looking at these different things. We talked about the importance of saying no. Don't overextend yourself. I see way too many people that retire, and they're busier now that they're retired than they were when they were working. And that's crazy. Track your progress. That's how you monitor. We talked about using apps like MyFitnessPal. If you got a Fitbit on or iWatch, you got apps on your watch that you can actually track how many steps you get a day. You can track what types of exercise you can do. And because that's relevant data, because if you want to go back and look at something, you can say, well, I felt really good on this day. Why don't I do the same thing so that I can feel good on more days like that? Not just wearing it because it looks cute or it looks good or anything, but just wear it because that's a lot of technology if you're going to wear it and expose yourself. And staying motivated, one of the main reasons that I say to stay motivated is to join some kind of workout group. And what I mean by some kind of workout group is I had a patient in here, and one of the things I can speak to them is I went to her 70th birthday party, and the whole workout group was there. Like they were like a team, like a little gang or something, right? And they were all like 70s, 8 retired ladies. But one of the things, they were all healthy and they work out together. So if one person is missing, you're gonna have probably 2 or 3 people call you, hey, why weren't you at class today? What happened? Instead of you doing it on your own and nobody holding you accountable, you miss one day, that turns into 2 days, that turns into 3 days. You get it, and that's staying motivated. And you don't always have to do it with other people. Some people got that desire and that will to do it themselves, but not everybody has that. So as we go into, The seventh step is to eat a whole food diet. And what do we mean? Anybody give me a list of whole foods? Not the store. Not the store.
Your protein.
Huh?
I say your protein.
Protein, like what? Give me an example of a whole food.
Salmon.
Salmon,
Here's a little protein.
salmon,
Potato.
potatoes,
Sweet broccoli with potato.
greens, yeah, broccoli, stuff that you can actually, that comes from the ground. It doesn't have to go through a process, right? The reason why processed foods actually are higher in sugar, they're usually unhealthy. You don't know what they put in it to make it processed. So you're looking at your bacons, you're looking at your sausages, you're looking at your, sometimes all these other things you get, it's got more than one ingredient in it. You look at a label, like I get these sometimes protein bars. The less ingredients in it, usually the healthier it is going to be for you. They hide a lot of stuff in there, a lot of sugars in there, a lot of other things. So you want to do that, and that can actually help you from losing weight because you're eating unprocessed or processed foods. But when you start eating whole foods, your body is easier for your body to break down and digest. That's the seventh thing. So to build on that, now we got to look at our water intake. How many of you drink half of your body weight in ounces of water? That's good. That's good for those of you who do. I bet your digestion is good because it helps you to digest. Now, the only people that can't do that unless you have some kind of kidney disease. People that have kidney disease or they have 30% function, 40% function, they can't do a lot of water like that because the kidney's not already functioning at such a high level. And then the other things you gotta look at too is that when you drink water like that, we're 70% water. Some people argue we're a little bit more. You wanna actually increase as much water as you can. When you start drinking other things outside the water, you increase your chance of taking more sugar. You look at lemonade, you look at Sprite, sodas, these sugary juices, they're horrible for you. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that to your body. Ninth thing is you want to increase your fiber. This is where people fall short. So you might eat your meat healthy, you might eat all this stuff right here, but how much fiber are you getting? So when you use apps like MyFitnessPal or use other ones out there, it'll break down and tell you how much fiber is in that food. It's not down to the T, but it's guesstimated. So you can say if I want to eat about 30 grams of fiber a day, and you increase the water intake, it's actually going to actually help you to be more regular in the bathroom. And so every time you eat, you should have a bowel movement. If you don't, usually that's some signs of constipation. And then when you increase this with the water and whole foods, that can eliminate a lot of constipation. But not only do what fiber does, fiber helps to lower your blood sugar levels. So a lot of us are suffering from insulin resistant. Some of us are diabetic, some of us are pre-diabetic. But when you increase fiber, it's going to lower that blood sugar level and it'll help with that insulin resistance. Because now it doesn't put, when stuff is backed up, it also backs up other processes like the liver and all these other things, and that can actually hinder you from losing weight and keep you from going a lot of other things. So 25 to 35 grams of fiber a day. And then we got right here, you want to increase your protein. What I strive for is to get 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if I'm 170 pounds, I want to do 170 grams of protein. That's kind of hard for a lot of people, so you got to kind of almost force yourself to eat. So if you could try to shoot for a little bit, 0.8 grams of protein per body weight, you can calculate that on an app. And one of the things it is, again, people with kidney disease, you got to be careful with that because you got to monitor your intake of certain vitamins and macros. Too much of stuff can be too taxing on the body. So with that right there, with that protein is what? Why is protein so important?
Keep our muscle.
Keep your muscles, and what else? What does protein do? Protein is the building block muscles. So one of the things that we lose as we get older is what? What do we lose as we get older? We lose muscle mass, we lose strength. That's why some of us with these 8 to 10 pound heads, we get older, we start doing this. Because you lose the strength. Protein is going to help you hold that head up, that bowling ball up, right? So we got to make sure we get it. So the other thing you want to do is you want to make sure you're getting the protein. Step number 11 is you want to sleep more and stress. So this right here is important. I go back and I can't stress this enough. This is so important because this nervous system is broken into 2 parts. What's the 2 parts of the nervous system? We got any science teachers in here? If y'all ain't heard me talk about it, what's the 2 parts of the nervous system? Nurses, doctors? Okay, now what do? What's the parasympathetic? Don't speak at once. Parasympathetic is what?
The flight.
Parasympathetic is rest and repair and digest. That's where majority of digestion happens, right? Sympathetic is fight or flight. Your body is supposed to meant to be spent about 70 to 80, probably 90% of your time in the parasympathetic state, where you're resting, digesting, you're repairing yourself. What happens is the way that the world that we live in today, we're living in a sympathetic dominant state. We live with like a lion is chasing us. If it's the husband stressing you out, it's the job stressing you out, you got kids. So we live like that, so it raises our cortisol levels, and we can't digest our food properly, and we can't lose weight. So that's why when you get sick, what do they have you do at the hospital? Is hospitals got treadmills in them? No. You just lay in the bed. Why? Because that's where your body's repairing itself. Your body's healing. So if you don't get a certain amount of sleep at night, there's no way you're going to be 100% be healthy. Does it make sense? You follow me? So this is so important because as a chiropractor, this is what I work with you a lot of times. A lot of you come in and you're in a parasympathetic, you're in a sympathetic dominant state. So you're in fight or flight, right? So when you come in and you lay on the table and I try to adjust you, and now I got to do some kind of wrestling move to get the bone to move. So you're like this, you're like, what? Yeah, I'll be like, man, relax, it's okay. But what happens is you got to learn how to relax those muscles and relax everything. Because what happens in this process, to break it down on a scientific level, if you're in a sympathetic dominant state, you decrease the amount of blood flow to your liver. It drops to about 10%. So now you're not even detoxifying your body properly. So all that blood flow goes to your muscles, which tightens them up because it's perceiving a threat. Like a dog or a lion is chasing. So how can you take that same stressful person and you send them on a trip to Cancun or the Bahamas, and now they feel like, oh, I'm in the best place in the world. I'm not stressed at all. I'm like, oh my God. Because you took that stressful person out of that environment, put them in a non-stressful environment, and they were totally a lot healthier. You have to set your life up like that. I can't stress that, and I'm not a life coach. I'm a health coach to a certain degree. But you have to set your life up to where it's non-stressful. That's the only thing that's going to be 100% healthy. Exercise, you can't out-exercise stress. You can't out-eat stress. Like, oh, you can eat all the stuff like that because there's no way your body's going to actually take and do it. And a lot of that stuff, too, if you go, doctors are going to start putting you on medications, and all that's going to do is sedate you. You're going to be sitting there looking like this. And then that can constipate you because everything else moves down, right? But sometimes we need that to help. So if you want to increase more blood flow to the liver, which is the major detoxifier in the body, you got to learn how to rest and start to repair itself. And that's one of the things that's so important. Now, as a chiropractor, what happens is this body flows from above, down, inside, and out. Take your hand and just raise it up. So above, down, inside, and out. There's an energy force that moves through you called innate intelligence. That innate intelligence right now is keeping your heart beating. Your heart is beating right now. You're not telling them to beat. You control everything, right? What's happening is that innate intelligence is what happened when that sperm and the egg cell got together and it started multiplying. Then next thing you know, you got a baby. Then the baby gets up, they start walking and crawling, they start talking. That's innate intelligence. Some people call it God, some people call it Mother Nature. In the chiropractor, in the science profession, in the science field, we call it innate intelligence. That's the inborn ability of the body to maintain and control itself, which is called homeostasis. Now you have universal intelligence in how the world works and how we are people in that innate intelligence inside of us. You can't not listen to innate. Innate is what is keeping us going. Now what happens is that flows to the nervous system. Now let's say, for instance, you fell at 16 on steps in your butt and you fractured your tailbone. And it shattered all the way up your spine and you've had headaches ever since. Because you fell on this. Now what you did is you blocked that innate from flowing to these nerves out here to go to these organs. Next thing you know, you turn around and she's 24, she gets married and wants to have kids. She can't have kids. Next thing you know, she's having all these bad, severe menstrual cramps, can't have kids, and that's all because that vertebrae is shifted and it's putting pressure on that nerve that's going to that uterus, to those ovaries. So that one little subluxation of that vertebrae that's shifted like that can actually block that life flow from flowing to the body the way it should be. And when that happens, that disrupts whatever that nerve is supplying, it's going to die slowly. Next thing you know, the lady turns around, she's 30-something, she was able to do one kid through in vitro and spent $50,000 doing it back in the day when it was so expensive. And now she's had a hysterectomy and she's only 40. That's stories that happen to people all the time. And that's because, and I think to myself, why couldn't they have came in my office? What is there as an adjustment that I could have done that actually could have take the pressure off that nerve and made it work. Now, is that a cure-all for everything? No. But I know that the body is better when it doesn't have subluxations. When these vertebrae move, you are better. If it doesn't move, you're going to die faster. That's a fact. So you have to maintain, and this is, not about just chiropractic, it's about weight loss, but it's about overall health. These vertebrae are designed to move. And if they don't move, you sleep 20 years. You and your husband mad at each other. You sleep on this side, your head turned this way. He sleep on his side, his head turned this way, right? Next thing you know, y'all standing in my office and one head like this and the other head like that. So now you sit up here and I gotta get you guys straight again. Life is like that, it's balance. Or I think about the pictures of my grandmother who I miss dearly, and she was a stern Southern lady. She kept we call it a pocketbook. Purse on this shoulder and the shoulder like this, and she had severe scoliosis. I remember looking at her x-rays when I was in chiropractic school, and I was thinking, man, is there something I could have did? You know what I'm saying? But I wasn't a chiropractor then. But what happened is just standing like this for years, carrying those purse, that pocketbook, walking. Martha Jane, here she comes, right? And so that's one of the things that you can't negate that. It's not just about pain. And so when that vertebrae shifts and it puts pressure on that nerve, it doesn't always hurt. When it starts to hurt is when it gets inflamed. And inflammation is what kills. So inflammation, low grade of inflammation is what is also going to cause you to gain weight. And it's also going to lead to some other stuff. So it's enough about this. If we can keep this going from above, down, inside, and out, I believe that the body has the best chance of healing itself. So going to the next one. The 12th thing is you got to fix your gut. Now this is where I wanted to go through this stuff as much as possible because I want to spend a lot of time on this. Now with gut right here, unhealthy gut can contribute to low-grade inflammation, which is linked to weight gain and metabolic disorders. When I say metabolic disorders, what are we talking about? Don't speak at once. What's a metabolic disorder? Just give me an example. We're all family. Diabetes, yes. What's another one? Endocrine issues. Hormone issues for females. Y'all are all females in here. What about also headaches? What about high blood pressure? Those are metabolic. What about high cholesterol? Low good cholesterol? All these different things. These are things right here that can actually contribute to that. So what about this? You ever thought about brain fog? How many of you walked in a room and forgot why you walked in a room? That's showing signs of gut inflammation. This right here is the first brain, and this is the second brain. The name for this is called what we call the microbiome. The microbiome is the small intestines, the large intestines, and small intestines. That's where your body absorbs all the nutrients from, not the stomach. The stomach helps break stuff down so it processes it for digestion. So if your stomach acid is low, you're not going to break food down, and that's what's going to cause a lot of bloating. It's going to cause a lot of other stuff. Which you got how many people get asthma-like symptoms? Bronchitis, if you eat something. How I noticed that my son ended up with food sensitivities and allergies is he gets asthma when he gets dairy. It triggers it, right? When we started doing testing, we found this stuff out. Also, too, musculoskeletal joint pain. See, when I added functional medicine into chiropractic, the results started going through the roof. So if I haven't done a nutritional consult with you, I will be doing it soon. Some of you already done, some of you haven't. Because I was noticing that we were only getting so far if I was adjusting the joint. And then you leave here and stop by McDonald's and get that number 2. It's not going to work. It's not going to work together. This is a lifestyle change. Muscle stiffness and swelling, rashes and eczema. Also constipation, diarrhea, fatigue. If you're constantly tired all the time, that's showing signs of what we call dysbiosis. That's disruption of the gut. Now you also got headaches, gas and bloating, abdominal pain. How many people that you know, let me tell you, if I see 10 people with low back pain, 8 of them are constipated. Do you know that? 8 of them don't use the bathroom every day. I had one person that they don't use the bathroom twice a month. Recently. Twice a month. Stomach looks like they're pregnant. And then I get some people that get these other conditions. So there's one of the things is what in the functional medicine world, we got to establish what we call your biomarkers are. So we got to establish what you're sensitive to, what antibodies are actually doing to your body that are reacting to certain things. So you got 3 different ways that we can find this stuff out. You got some people have food sensitivities, which show up as joint pain. So then you think, oh, let me go to Dr. John and get an adjustment. Some people come up and they got intolerances to where they actually start getting gas and bloating. So now you're not so much sensitive, you're intolerant to it. So you can't tolerate it. Like dairy, right? So a lot of people say I'm lactose intolerant. Then you got food allergies. That's where the body really attacks itself. And then people end up with what they call anaphylactic shock. So they have to keep an EpiPen. They get the peanut table, it's still peanut-free school, stuff like that, right? So these are things right here. It says the impact of gut microbiome. These are research articles. It actually increases obesity. So you're going to gain weight. It's hard for people to lose weight if their gut is not functioning properly. So these are just different kinds of articles. Now how that works is what a process like this. I'm going to explain. This is something you probably don't even really pay attention to. But these things right here is what a normal gut looks like. So when you look at this right here, look at my fingers. So this is what the gut looks like. It's like this. So if I eat something and it goes down my esophagus, goes into my stomach acid breaks it up. It starts actually in my mouth, the enzymes. Breaks it up, it gets to my stomach, it turns into this like little mush. Then it goes through the digestive tract, the large intestines, and it goes through into the small intestine, and it looks like this. And so what happens, you got microvilli in there that float. So the food is coming by and it's actually pulling out the stuff that's good for the body into the bloodstream. Now what happens is when I do stuff that stress me out, like you get stressed all the time. You drink a lot of alcohol, a lot of sugar. Medications do it, a lot of medications. They disrupt those tight junctions so they're not like this, they're more like this. So imagine we got the border patrol. Y'all ever cross the border? You ever drive to Canada or Mexico? You ever cross the border and then what happens is you got to show all the paperwork to get in the country. You got to show your passport, whatever, the reason why you're going. Now imagine if 5 of those people just quit and now you got people just driving into the country. So now you got people that shouldn't be in the country that shouldn't be there, right? Or you get tight junctions and now you eat something and now you got stuff that's in your bloodstream that shouldn't be there. So now your body's going to start to release these things called antigens. These are like IgG, IgA, IgM, all these different antibodies. They're like the Army, Navy, Air Force, all they got different responsibilities. And what their job is to do is to actually protect the body. But when they don't know what's foreign or what's not, so they start attacking the body, and that's how we end up with these sensitivities and these allergies and intolerance. Give an example. I read something recently the other day. Guess what the size of a cow's milk is, the protein in cow's milk, and why we have such a hard time with it? It's 8 times the size of humans. So a lot of people can't break that protein down. That's why they're saying more people get intolerant. Now guess what? The other process to that is too. What happens to the cow where they're growing the cow, where the cow is being bred and they're feeding it more antibodies and they're giving it all these drugs so it's making it even larger. That's why you see these kids, if those are your education, they're developing faster. You got girls that are in like 5th grade that look like they're 18 years old. You got guys, last time I was in high school, I can't even grow a full beard. These cats had beards walking around like, what's up, Dr. Artis? I'm like, man, we had the peach fuzz. I'm walking around with a little brush back in the day. You know, like, man, I'm about to. So what happens is it disrupts that tight junctions. It lets stuff in there and it creates inflammation. When it creates inflammation, that's what gets systemic. I guess one of the first places it's going to go, the brain. Now, what do you see a lot of people getting developing now? Dementia. And then a form of dementia is called Alzheimer's, which they call it type 3 diabetes. Because of that inflammation. So the only way that you know this right here is if we sit down and we look at these different organs, because what you'll do if you go the medical route is you're going to be busy trying to treat symptoms. So you go there with headaches, they're going to say, let's give you something for headaches. You walk out, you're going to be on 30 different medications.
That
30!
just happened to one of my coworkers.
I think
she
you just
got
don't
sick,
care.
and she was having headaches and vomiting and everything. They literally sent her home with 84 pills.
84 pills?
Up in Michigan, Lansing, Michigan, 84 pills. And
Do we
told
need more
her
pills?
not to go to a chiropractor, that they didn't recommend that.
Did you understand that? And I always say what chiropractic school they went to. I had another patient that came in today that was she didn't come in because she had a bad experience with another chiropractor. So I called her and asked her not to base her experience on all of chiropractic. You can't do that. That's just thing. So we get the short end of the stick. But we gotta fight for what we get. That's why we're so much stronger. That's why we're healthier. I don't sit there, like I remember I was at a seminar in Florida, in Orlando. And it was a chiropractic conference on one end. It was a medical doctor. These were gastrointestinal. They're talking about this, what I'm talking about. The door blew open because of the wind, right? Yeah, all these guys were out there smoking. They were out there smoking, y'all. Like I'm sitting up here, and you could just smell the whiff of smoke down the hall. Stomachs hanging. I was talking to a couple guys had heart attacks. We were the same age. Heart attack. He said, dude, I had cardiac rehab. I was like, what? We're the same. And when somebody your age gets something, it hits different.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're like, oh man. So that day, I was lucky I was on the other side of the building. I was really lucky I was on the other side of the building. So just to not piggyback off that too long. So the first step that you want to do is you want to start back and incorporate the first 6 things that I talked about. Then incorporate other ones. But every time you eat, at twice a day minimum, every time you eat, I want you to incorporate, these are what they call prebiotic foods. Prebiotic foods are foods that aid in digestion. Now, some of you can't tolerate this stuff, right? But prebiotic foods will be things like mushrooms, artichokes are good. Asparagus is probably one of the golden standards, one of my favorite things, because it does so much for you. Onions, cabbage, garlic, watermelon. Some of these, if you're diabetic, you got to be careful, like the bananas and the watermelon. They usually have a higher glycemic index, and that glycemic index is how much sugar it is when they weigh it on the scale. So you got to be careful with that. So if you do a banana, you want to do half of it, or put it in some oatmeal with something that's like a stiff carb to help break that sugar up. Kidney beans, you know, except the wheat pasta. I shouldn't have put that up there, but I kind of snapped this from somewhere. But these are food that help with a healthy, good bacteria. They help aid in digestion. Now, how many of y'all heard of probiotics? Everybody's heard of probiotics. It's going to real populate because of gut health, because a lot of people are starting to recognize this. The thing with gut probiotics, though, probiotics are live macroorganisms that are intended to actually help balance out the good bacteria with the bad bacteria. So in your gut, you have it's a microbiome. So you have the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. When you have too much of the bad bacteria, you develop a condition called SIBO, which is small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. I currently have a functional medicine patient that's not a chiropractic patient, but that's what we're dealing with her. And what it is it's so much overgrown bad bacteria in the intestines, she can't eat anything without having diarrhea, without having all this other stuff. The medical doctors refused to give her a SIBO test. And so when I gave her a SIBO test, that's how she became a patient. And so what happens is that's where we would actually take a stool sample, and she would collect the stool sample, send it off to a lab, and they send me a report, and it tells me all the bacteria that were found in her gut. So now how we begin to treat it is now I start recommending different types of probiotics. That's why you can't just go to the store and get probiotics. Probiotics are a specific reason, and you need to go to a professional to find out which ones are right for you. You just don't go to Walgreens. So what happens is when I started first going out of the country, and we were getting ready to go to India at this time, and when one of the guys said, man, just take a handful of acidophilus every day. Well, that's one type of microorganism that you're going to expose your body to. You can actually cause yourself to become sick like that. The best way to do it is you got to have a whole slither of different kinds of microorganisms that you expose your body to. So when you go to a foreign environment, you've already been exposed to it. You're less likely to get traveler's diarrhea. You're less likely to have something happen if you come across any contaminants in the water. Even if I've been all over, even in Haiti, which is probably one of the poorest places I've ever been, I never had cholera. I never had that. You know, just because of the fact that I was always cautious about different things. And that's something that you got to do. But now, you look at third world countries, we have the same problems here in the United States. You look at Michigan, you look at Flint, Michigan with the lead water. And that's just one place that we know about. Jackson, Mississippi, all those places. You know, Chicago, exactly. Yeah, so this is why probiotics are so important. But this is the deal, people. You don't take probiotics forever. I'm not a person that you got to take supplements forever. I use them to speed up a process, but you have to make the lifestyle changes to actually make that process permanent. So what happens is if I ever recommend supplements for you, we're only going to do it probably 3 months tops. Some people might be 6 in extreme cases. And then what we're going to do is we're going to reevaluate you and see where you are, and then we might have to go a different route or we just completely stop it off. I want you to live as if you don't need a pharmacy. So if something go down, you ain't looking for Walgreens to stand in line. You know, we can just go and we can just eat off the earth and the land and learn how our ancestors did, and you can still be healthy.
Doctor?
Yes?
What is sauerkraut good for?
Sauerkraut is a form of a prebiotic. So what that is that's a fermented food. That's one of the things that I was going to talk. You should do at least one fermented food a day, or at least a teaspoon of it. You can do everything from sauerkraut to kefir. You could do what's another fermented food? Okay, huh? Kombucha is another one. Yep. Kombucha too tends to be a little higher in sugar. Not one of my favorites.
Sugar,
but
alcohol, and caffeine.
And caffeine. So it'll give you, but it's unless you make your own. But like Dr. Tate does. But this is another one, you gotta cut sugar. Anything that has like maltodextrose, any of these sugars that you can't pronounce. I had a patient come in today, Dr. Artis, you're gonna be proud of me. She had this thing that says 0 sugar. You turn around, it was all the artificial sugars in it. 0 sugar means a whole bunch of chemicals. Do you understand? So you wanna look at, I said, if you can't pronounce 3 of these, you shouldn't be drinking it. She was like, this, cellulose this, like that's not a good thing. I said the best option that you could have did when you went in there is I'm pretty sure they had another cabinet in that gas station that had water in it. Just drink water. And you spent $2 on this little like Gatorade looking thing, so you want to cut the sugar. Next thing you want to do too is you want to look at this stuff, right? So we all have purpose. I talked about why do you want to lose weight before, and I want to cap it off on this. Some people want to lose weight because they want to get in a wedding dress. They got their niece getting married or graduation, whatever. You got to really want to think about why you want to do it. Because we all have a purpose. Now, once you get your purpose together, there's something that separates the people that do it and the people that don't. And it's this thing called desire. I've always noticed that, and even in the chiropractic field, why some chiropractors make it and some chiropractors don't. And we all have purpose. Like we want to adjust and subluxation, we say the all thing. Some people can say the same thing, but it doesn't even land differently. Because they don't have that desire, that extra burning. That's that 1 degree that turns something from non-boiling to boiling. You got to find your desire that's inside of here. And it's not from me, it's not from anybody else, on why you want to be healthy. The thing that I read the other day, and I want to leave with this quote, is most people don't want to be successful, they just don't want to suffer. And I said, let me think that one through. Most people don't want to be healthy, they just don't want to suffer. Most people don't want to be healthy, truthfully. They just don't want to suffer. You got to really think about why you want to be healthy. And you got to own that. Like, I got a vision for my health. Like, I want to be 90 with my grandkids, great-grandkids, taking them all to Disneyland. I'm going to fly them out. I'm going everybody. they're going to be like, Papa, I'm going to be walking. Might be a little skinnier, but I'm going to be standing upright. Whatever it is, but I got a vision and I'm going to take them all to Disneyland because I always thought Disneyland was better because it was smaller. And it was more convenient. I just like California better than Florida. But the thing about it is that's the vision I have, and I fight for that every day. When I see my kids and I pour into them and then I see you guys, it motivates me to want to be healthier. I don't do it out of fear. I'll tell you a story. I had a friend that's a chiropractor that developed cancer, some brain tumor. And he went to Spain, spent all this money, went to Europe, went down to Brazil, did all these treatments and beat it. So he came back and he wrote this book, F Cancer, right? And so he made his whole mission. He's educating, he's doing these lives, cancer this and this and this. Guess what he died from? Yeah. Cancer. Wherever you put your focus is what you're going to attract. So you don't do something based out of fear. I know your intentions. Do it because you want to be healthy, but because you want to be well. Don't do it because you might get diabetes. Do it because it's the right thing. Don't do it out of fear. That goes back this. Most people don't want to be healthy. They just don't want to suffer. You know, when I see people come in, and like I said, I'm getting older now, I'm 47, and I see people come in, they're suffering, and I say, man, I had a patient. We the same, 3 strokes. 3 strokes. We the same age. Now, quick review. If you do find yourself feel like you're getting a bad headache, don't play. Go to the hospital. Strokes are nothing to play with. You got a 2-hour window to get TAP or TPA. And if you don't, if you get it, you can reverse it. But if you don't, it actually can make it worse. I had patients later because they didn't want nobody to break their brand new door down. And they died. Or they didn't die, but they just incapacitated for the rest of their life. So what happens is recognize fast. I'm going to just review this fast. Face, droop, right? Arm pain, speech start to slur, and then you got time. Don't play with that. I always review that. That's something that I do. I do a program at the Croc Center, which Ms. Burks goes through. It's at Walk with the Doc on the 2nd Friday of the month at the Croc Center. and usually in the celebration room. And we have a neurologist there, Dr. Applewall, who that's all she does is stroke research. And the disparities of people with color, and especially on the south side areas of Chicago versus the north side, is night and day difference.
Yeah.
It's night and day difference. So that's something that we don't want to play with. So I want to thank y'all for looking at this right here. I want to review a couple things. I want to make you an offer because what I hope I did today was actually educate you on what you were doing and what you should do to add to the 6 steps. Now you got 12, and then we might continue to develop this on. But what I want you to do is I want to review this. We want to look at that, fix your gut. If you got some gut issues, come see me. Let's set up a consultation. We can work it out. We can keep that information low. A lot of stuff that I'm telling y'all, I do myself. It's not like I'm sitting up here going out and smoking a cigarette and I done told y'all not to smoke, or I'm saying exercise. You know, I was at the chiropractor seminar one time. We were all sitting there. And I said, if you're going to be a chiropractor, at least look healthy. So I never got invited back to that one. They didn't like that one too well. But you got to look the part. You're talking about health. You gotta practice what you preach. So I do that. The other thing, too, is you want to make sure that you go back. Let's look at this real quick. You want to make sure that you eat a whole food diet, whole foods. So when you look in your refrigerator, it shouldn't be pink. It should be vibrant with colors. The more colors, the healthier you're going to be. So you got your red onions, you got your bell peppers, you got your orange bell peppers, yellow bell peppers, green, you got cucumbers, you got yellow squash, you got all these things, but you see a whole bunch of pink, it's only a matter of time. You're going to be on some medication or you're going to end up with some kind of condition. Or a lot of white containers of leftovers where you ate all these restaurants. Right? So the other thing you want to do is increase your water intake, half your body weight in ounces. And then you want to increase your fiber. I would say a good number is 30 grams of fiber a day you need to incorporate. You can get fiber from where? Vegetables. You can also get it from fruits. You get it from apples, peanuts. Also, I would encourage everybody to go to EWG. It's an environmental work group. I think it's work group. And what they do is they post a list of the cleanest vegetables that you can buy. It's called a Clean 15 and a Dirty Dozen. G. And what that does is called a Clean 15 and a Dirty Dozen. And those are the foods that actually have the highest amounts of pesticides in it. The second thing I would say too, I will add to this with this is increase your protein, or third thing, increase your protein, sleep and stress management, wash that out and fix your gut. The number one way that you can fix your gut by adding these things in with the probiotics and the prebiotics is cut gluten and dairy. I encourage everybody to stop eating gluten and stop eating dairy. That's one of the biggest disruptors. It's not the fact that gluten is bad. Gluten is bad. It's not the fact that wheat is bad, but it's being sprayed with glyphosate. And glyphosate disrupts the gut. That's the stuff that Monsanto is pushing. That's stuff that they keep it from molding. So corn, a lot of that stuff, you got to wash these foods off. You just don't buy it. You know, people eating stuff in the grocery store. I was in the grocery store, somebody was just eating grapes. Walking around eating grapes. I was like, man, she didn't even wash them things. That's how people get listeria. They get all kinds of bacterial infections and get up sick like that. Yes?
When they wash, you can't just wash with water. I advise you to use baking soda. Baking soda actually neutralizes. So take it and soak it in some baking soda and then rinse it thoroughly.
That's good. So you know you got that. Strawberries and apples.
Come out of it. I
Yep.
literally soaked mine with vinegar and baking soda like for 20 minutes, and it was so many bugs.
Yeah.
That came out of the strawberries.
Strawberries are one of the highest ones with the highest contaminants. Strawberries and apples are on the top of the list this year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So cut that, and then look at your desired